My name is Dale Ward, I'm a comedian and an artist, and I wrote a thesis about how Michael Myers from the Halloween movies is a Zen master. I called it Zen and the Art of Halloween, an analysis of Zen master Michael Myers. This video is chapter 6 of my thesis, and these are some of my Halloween paintings that will be appearing in the background. So let's get into chapter 6, which is titled Saṃsāra. Or if you're gonna pronounce it wrong, Samhain Saṃsāra. My sixth proof of Michael Myers being a Zen master is that he kills egos. In Zen, becoming unattached to the ego and going beyond all forms of identity are important steps towards enlightenment. Therefore, all Zen masters are experts at eradicating egos, and the boogeyman is no exception. He uses his knife to cut through your ego while he cuts through your flesh. In doing so, the shape shows you that your ego dies when your body dies, and there's no point in being attached to either. This means that Michael Myers is a serial ego killer, as well as an actual serial killer. Zen monk D.T. Suzuki said, quote, "Identity is a static condition and decidedly associated with death. When we are dead, we return to the dust where we started. We are then identified with the earth. Identification is not the thing to covet highly. Let us destroy all such artificial barriers we put up between nature and ourselves, for it is only when they are removed that we see into the living heart of nature and live with it, which is the real meaning of love. For this, therefore, the clearing away of all conceptual scaffolds is imperative," end quote. This is precisely what the boogeyman does. When Michael teaches kills, he eliminates, eradicates, and erases all traces of ego and identity, along with all other artificial barriers, distinctions, concepts, and ideas that block us from seeing into our own living hearts of nature. In fact, all Zen masters help their students attain a state of egoless enlightenment and unification with nature. The difference is that Master Michael Myers makes us literally become one with nature because our bodies decompose and succumb to the elements after he kills us. My point is that the shape shoves his knife of truth into unenlightened people, which severs their attachment to ego and identity. In this respect, killing is Michael's very unique upaya. Upaya is a Sanskrit term in Buddhism for the expedient means that a master will use in order to teach a circumstantial or personalized lesson that fosters liberation. An upaya technique is often not based on logic or reasoning, it's more like an instinct of the teacher that's adapted to the unique and specific situations or needs of the student or audience. The boogeyman's instinct is obviously to stab and kill his students, victims, on Halloween. Which, I admit, is very extreme, but it's not uncommon for upaya methods to be controversial or even violent. For example, Zen masters frequently accompany koans with shouts and slaps, while some Zen stories indicate a much higher level of violence, such as the rare examples in the last chapter. That being said, these methods are often exactly what's needed to push the student to the next level of attainment. A violent upaya is used to shock the students into opening their eyes to the nature of self and suffering beyond ego. Moreover, since most people are desperately attached to their egos, almost everyone needs a shocking expedient enticement. In this way, stabbing and killing can be seen as the boogeyman's extremely shocking upaya, which definitely wakes people up to the nature of self and suffering. So perhaps one of the reasons why the Shape delivers his distinctive death upaya is because his students, victims, are in such a deep illusory ego sleep that they need the drastic method of facing death in order to fully and totally wake up. In other words, while many Zen masters may make you metaphorically face ego death, Master Michael Myers makes you literally face actual death, because killing people and their egos is his Halloween upaya. Obviously, the boogeyman is a very unique and rare Zen teacher, but this actually seems to be the norm. 800 years ago, Zen Master Dogen said, quote, "When we wish to practice complete and utter awakening, it is difficult to encounter the right teacher. This is not a matter of such characteristics as whether they are male or female and so on. It only matters that the teacher must be one who is intimately realized and of the fullest attainment. A teacher's true form is the marrow of reality. He is not a you, me, or him, for the true teacher is completely empty." End quote. And I already proved in Chapter 3 that Michael Myers is the shape of pure emptiness, shunyata. And his ineffable true form shows us the marrow of reality, which means that he is the most empty teacher who does not fit any label whatsoever. The boogeyman is not a you, me, or him. In fact, all identifiable characteristics are meaningless when the shape is involved, including those of his students. Victims! He does not care about your name, gender, sexuality, ethnicity, race, religion, and so on. Michael Myers kills everyone, regardless of identity and status. In this sense, the shape shows us that no one is better than anyone else, because we are all equal when we are dead. And we will all die because the shape of death comes for everyone, without discrimination. Death does not discriminate, and neither does Michael Myers. Therefore, we can all relate to each other because we are all the same in the eyes of the boogeyman, and we are all the same in the eyes of death. So Michael not only shows us that every corpse is egoless, but also that every corpse is equal, because death is true equality. Thus, Michael Myers is the shape of equality. To wake up and be egoless and enlightened is to go beyond all concepts, see things as they are, and become unified with everything to the point where physical death is simply seen as change in the cycle of existence. On the other hand, attachment to ego and identity turns this natural wheel of existence into dukkha, suffering. This is known as samsara, which is a Sanskrit word used to represent cyclical change and the never-ending wheel of suffering through birth, mundane existence, and death. The boogeyman merely makes this wheel of pain spin faster, because Michael Myers is the shape of samsara. However, if you learn their lessons, both the Buddha and the boogeyman can help you get off the wheel of samsara into egoless, blissful freedom brought about by the end of all egotistical desires and the subsequent cessation of suffering. This state of being is called Nirvāṇa, which is a Sanskrit word that means to blow out the candle of worldly ego-based desire as well as all of the pain related to it. Just like how the boogeyman blows out the candle of your jack-o'-lantern by killing you on Halloween. In other words, the shape shows you that there are no egotistical desires and subsequently no suffering when you're dead. That is final nirvana. Alternatively, nirvana can be found in life if you take the steps to realize shunyata, egolessness, non-attachment, and all the other Zen characteristics of the boogeyman that I've been describing in this thesis. For all of these reasons, especially the fact that nirvana is the end of suffering, I think that Michael Myers is the shape of nirvana. Zen is different from most other forms of Buddhism because it teaches that nirvana is within the wheel of samsara and everyday life, not outside it. Zen Master Dogen Zenji said, quote, "If you are unable to find the truth where you are now, you will never find it." End quote. In the same way, if you are unable to find the boogeyman where you are now, you will never find him, but he will find you. I will talk more about that symbolism shortly. The point is that the best way to find nirvana is to stop looking for it and just be it. Unfortunately, your ego will never stop searching, but mercifully, Master Michael Myers solves this problem because you can't look for anything when you're dead. Michael teaches that it's not your life and ego, but your attachment that's one of the most severe forms of suffering. Your ego is an idea that doesn't exist in physical reality, and every living thing inevitably dies, so your attachment to any of it is pure suffering. Thus, when the boogeyman comes after you on Halloween and you desperately try to cling to your life, that is your ego illusion trying to hang on to something it cannot possibly hang on to. Philosopher Alan Watts perfectly described this situation as the illusory hand grasping at smoke. Fortunately, Master Michael Myers not only extinguishes the flame of your jack-o'-lantern on Halloween, he also blows away the resulting smoke so that there's nothing to grasp at with your dying illusory hand. These are all some of the reasons why an important saying in Buddhism is die before you die. It means that you face, accept, and transcend your inevitable death before it physically happens. Die before you die also means killing your ego before the boogeyman actually kills you. Therefore, I think that the Halloween version of this saying is die before Michael Myers kills you. Which very few people do. It's quite clear that all of Michael's past students, victims, were unenlightened, and therefore it could be hypothesized that his target demographic is unenlightened people. Which, I might add, is the same demographic of people who become students of Zen masters. So I think that the boogeyman kills unenlightened people. Perhaps this is why the shape kills so many people. Because most people are unenlightened and attached to their egos. In other words, every person on this planet is Michael's potential student. Victim! All that being said, even though the shape clearly has no moral compass or any reasoning whatsoever, Myers doesn't kill any of the children that run into him on Halloween. For example, on Halloween in 1978, 3 boys were tormenting 8-year-old Tommy Wallace by surrounding him and yelling, "He's gonna get you, he's 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 gonna get you. The boogeyman is coming." To their credit, they were actually correct about that. Tommy tried to get away from them, but he was tripped by Richie, making him fall onto the pumpkin he was holding. At that point, all the boys laughed and ran away, which was when Richie literally ran into the shape. But the boogeyman didn't kill Richie. He let the boy go when he could have easily killed him. So why didn't he kill Richie? My Zen theory is that maybe Michael Myers doesn't kill kids because children are not attached to their ego identities. Children see everything as new, interesting, and wonderful just the way it is without any preconceived notions or attachments to ego. That is very Zen. And perhaps this is why it's said that the way to heaven is through the eyes of a child. Consequently, it could be concluded that it's good to collect the eyes of children. Happy Halloween! Do you remember when you were a child on Halloween? For me, being a kid on October 31st was exciting, delicious, spooky, scary, sneaky, mischievous, mysterious, marvelous, fun, and full of feeling without being consumed by thoughts, worries, and labels. That is a heavenly state of existence. So maybe there's no need for Michael Myers to send children to heaven because they are already there. D.T. Suzuki said that a child has, quote, no scrupulousness, no deliberation as regards practical and worldly merit or demerit. In this respect, the child is angelic, even divine, end quote. Basically, children have innocent eyes that see heaven in everything because they are not attached to any concepts, ideas, or ego identities. However, all of that changes as they grow up and their ego takes over to see everything in terms of survival and profit. In other words, most children lose their eyes of heaven when they gain the egotistical adult eyes of hell. Luckily, the boogeyman will carve out your eyes like a jack-o'-lantern and send you to heaven on Halloween, because Michael Myers is the shape of hell. D.T. Suzuki continues, saying that a child, quote, ignores all the social devices that keep grown-ups decent and conventional and law-abiding. It is living under no such artificial human-made constraints. The practical outcome of such behavior may not always be acceptable to the taste of so-called cultivated, refined, sophisticated people of the world, but the question here is not one of such practical considerations, but of the genuineness of motive, the disinterestedness of feeling, and the immediateness of response, end quote. Maybe that's a Zen statement proving that Michael Myers is childlike in his killing because he is immediate, disinterested in feeling, and his motive is totally genuine since he exists only to kill people. In Zen terms, Michael came into this world as a natural-born teacher, killer, and his sole purpose is to teach. Kill! At 6 years old, Michael started teaching. Killing! And after that, only his body matured along with his skills in teaching. Killing! But his essence remained juvenile and unattached to ego. Perhaps this is why the shape seems so childlike while making and admiring his Halloween art. With that said about Michael Myers not killing children, it's very clear that he has no problem killing teenagers, which is an aspect about him that is totally understandable, if not totally forgivable. In fact, teens appear to be Michael's main prey, maybe because teenagers have recently lost their childlike innocence and instead have massive egos which they are becoming totally attached to. These facts further prove my theory that the shape teaches kills people who are unenlightened and attached to their egos. And teaching unenlightened ego-based people is exactly what Zen masters do. At the same time, however, I also think that the boogeyman has no rhyme or reason in anything he does, and we will never totally understand him. In other words, he is often a completely contradictory koan with perfectly puzzling and perplexing behavior. He is an unsolvable mystery, just like the universe and Zen itself. I'm simply theorizing why Michael Myers kills adults and teenagers but not kids, or babies. For example, in the 2018 timeline of Halloween folklore, he indiscriminately killed an anonymous woman with a hammer in a random house that he wandered into. Then the Shape grabbed a knife and looked at a crying baby in a crib. But he walked away. So why did he kill the woman but not the baby? Like I said, I don't think he has any logic or reasoning, but maybe the boogeyman didn't kill the baby because babies don't have egos. Which is to say that there was no illusion to dissolve, and therefore nothing for Michael to teach. Kill! In this way, perhaps Myers unintentionally confirmed the theory that babies have an egoless oceanic feeling. The term oceanic feeling was coined by Romain Rolland in his letter to the famous founder of psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud. The oceanic feeling refers to a sense of egoless eternity due to a deep connection with everything in the universe, resulting in an identity that feels as if personal existence is one vast, endless ocean. Freud talked about the oceanic feeling as a type of infantile consciousness that a baby has before it becomes self-aware and differentiates itself from everything else, and therefore it doesn't feel any separation between itself and anything else. This makes sense because if you imagine what it's like to be a baby where everything is new and unknown, including yourself, you would have no concept of self and other. Life would appear uniform yet magical since you wouldn't know nor be attached to ideas of differentiated individuality or ego identity. Alan Watts, however, talked about the theory of an adult oceanic feeling, which is not the undifferentiated, unintelligent, and unsophisticated experience of the baby, but mature egolessness with a reconnection to universal consciousness as an adult, where one can still recall the knowledge of ego, identification, communication, social norms and behaviors, etc., yet not be attached to any of it. This is akin to egoless enlightenment in Zen, and I would argue that the Shape is totally connected with this oceanic feeling, to the point where he sees everything as an ocean of himself. In other words, in his eyes, we are all an ocean of Michael Myers. And maybe he only kills the part of himself that is consumed in the delusion of separateness, the ego. Which again is why he kills so many people. With that in mind, the boogeyman would see a crying baby in the same way that he sees a rock on the ground, and there's no need to stab a rock because it has no ego illusion to dismember. The adult oceanic feeling implies that it's possible for you to attain enlightenment as an adult if you can see life with childlike eyes and realize that your ego is an illusion. Thus, the trick and treat of being an enlightened adult is that you can still use your ego to play the game of individuality and society when it's necessary, but you know that it's just a tool of the game. On the other hand, the Shape shows you that the game ends no matter what you do. You either end the game yourself by becoming enlightened and unattached to your ego while you are alive, or the game ends when you die at the hands of the boogeyman. In many ways, Michael Myers is the Shape of the end. When he kills you, the boogeyman is forcing you into physical union with the universal ocean beyond your ego. This means that the shape is getting rid of your ego illusion and showing you that the real you always survives because you are an individual yet inseparable manifestation of the eternal universe in the present moment. Therefore, Michael Myers is not actually killing you, he is killing your ego. He is waking you up to the fact that you are enlightened, because you are the universe and your ego is not real. In this respect, the boogeyman is an embodiment of egoless enlightenment trying to reach you and wake you up. In other words, Michael Myers is the shape of enlightenment. The simple truth is that most people are not awake to our connections, but Zen and the shape can help wake us up to our wholeness. Therefore, maybe the boogeyman gives your body extra holes in order to show you that you are whole, because Michael Myers is the shape of the whole. One of my all-time favorite quotes is from Alan Watts. Quote, "You are something that the whole universe is doing in the same way that a wave is something that the whole ocean is doing." End quote. It's perfect! You are so much more than your ego. You are one with the endless egoless ocean of reality. Therefore, I think that the shape is simply an oceanic wave whose whole existence is the killing of other waves, which can wake waves up to the oceanic feeling of enlightenment. So Michael Myers is a personification of the universal ocean killing its own waves. Now I'm going to egotistically add on to Alan's perfect sentence. Each wave in the ocean is still the ocean even if it doesn't feel that it is the ocean. In other words, it's okay if you feel that you are only a tiny part of the universe and not the universe itself, because regardless of your ego-based feelings, no part of the universe exists without every other part. However, if you want to wake up to the truth and transcend your ego, Zen is the process of getting all egotistical thoughts and illusions out of the way in order to rediscover your ineffable egoless oceanic reality. Therefore, to be enlightened is to wake up to the fact that you are the personification of universal Zen water, and you go with the flow since you realize that you aren't just a whirlpool, you are also the water flowing through the whirlpool, because you are the whole river. Furthermore, every river flows into the sea, so you also see that you aren't just a wave in the ocean, you are the whole ocean. But remember that a wave is no less a part of the ocean when it doesn't realize its inseparable unity with the ocean, which also means that the shape shows you that your oneness with the universe is totally unaffected by your thoughts and feelings about that oneness. In this sense, the boogeyman teaches you that your thoughts and feelings do not matter. Michael's lessons, killings, teach us that the truth of reality is beyond all ego-based conceptions and emotions because everyone is going to die. And neither your apprehension nor your feelings about that fact affect its inevitable reality. At some point, all of your thoughts and feelings will disappear along with your ego, which is a thought and feeling in itself. So in a way, physical death is similar to ego death since both are just different forms of returning to egoless unified oneness. This is actually very fortunate because it's extremely rare for a person to achieve ego death in life, but everyone physically dies. Michael Myers makes sure of that. This means that the shape is showing us that death is just another form of egolessness. Alan Watts called this situation inevitable ecstasy, because whether it's attained in life or not, egolessness is inevitable for all of us, just as much as death is. In other words, both the boogeyman and egolessness will inevitably find you, and it doesn't matter if you are looking for them or not. Therefore, don't bother clinging to your life nor your ego identity, because neither can be clung to. You cannot defend yourself against the shape of death. So there's actually nothing to worry about. Worrying can't stop you from dying, just like worrying can't stop the boogeyman. To paraphrase the Dalai Lama, who in turn was paraphrasing the Buddhist monk Shantideva, if the problem can be solved, why worry? If the problem cannot be solved, why worry? Subsequently, since the shape cannot be stopped, why worry? In other words, don't worry. You are going to die. Survival is impossible. So just let nature take its course. Even if what's natural is you clinging to your life and defending yourself, let that happen too. Just don't worry about it. That is Zen. Both Zen and Michael Myers merely liberate you from the exhausting panic of self-preservation. Thus, the problem is not death, the problem is fear and the desire to not die, even though death is inescapable. However, I've been trying to point out that death is just the universe waking up from its dream of you, also known as your ego. So what you are actually probably afraid of is egolessness, but that fear is your ego. And the boogeyman teaches you that no matter what you do, one day it will all be over. So just relax. Don't stress, don't worry, don't be attached, because everything works out in the end. In this regard, it doesn't matter whether you achieve enlightened egolessness in life or in death. And it definitely doesn't matter to Michael Myers, because nothing matters to the shape. The boogeyman feels nothing because he is nothing. Shunyata. The shape simply teaches you to remember who you are because your ego made you forget who you really are. Therefore, the boogeyman is a teacher who helps you forget your forgetting. In other words, he is the universe trying to remember itself. In this way, Michael Myers is the shape of remembering. Alan Watts cleverly said that the word remember is to remember or reassemble something back together from the pieces in your mind. Therefore, I conclude that the word forget is to dismember, which means that you are metaphorically dismembered when you have forgotten who you really are. And Michael Myers literally dismembers you so that you remember who you are. In other words, your ego is the dismembered universe, and the boogeyman dismembers that dismembering. Thus, Michael Myers is the shape of dismembering. Furthermore, when the shape shoves a knife into your body, you lose all ideas of identity, duality, separateness, and ego. This means that Michael Myers makes you be yourself, because when you are in pain, you are the one experiencing the pain, and you are the pain itself. You are the fear and the one experiencing it. In other words, the boogeyman is showing you that you are so much more than your idea of yourself. You are your whole life, and you are your death, because they go together. Ow. In summary, the shape simply shows us that we are all equal in death, whether it's ego death or physical death. This implies that before the boogeyman kills you, you have the chance and choice to become unattached to your ego illusion so that your consciousness is free and unified with the oneness of existence. Other than the chance to enjoy Halloween, I think that enlightenment is the most exciting and beautiful opportunity that one can possibly experience as an individual consciousness. In fact, perhaps the most precious part and art of life is the ability to liberate ourselves from the idea of ourselves. And Michael Myers can help us with this art because he teaches liberation from ego and realization of unity through his Upaya lessons of death. And we are all dying to learn the lessons being taught by the boogeyman. Literally. Okay, ghosts and goblins, that was my first draft of Chapter 6 of Zen and the Art of Halloween. Stick around to the end of this video to see my bloopers because they are honestly the best part. But first, hit that subscribe button to follow me the way Michael Myers followed Tommy Doyle. And if you enjoyed this video, please terrify the like button on Halloween night the way the Shape terrified Tommy. Be sure to check out the other chapters to put this one in context, and please comment below to let me know what you liked, or tell me everything you hated and what you want the boogeyman to do to me as punishment. Also, please comment any corrections you have if you think I made a mistake, or if you have any suggestions or additions, I'd love to hear them. Also, let me know if you'd like to see me perform a 1-hour version of this thesis live, or if you think I should publish it as a book, or if you want me to burn it with fire and never speak of it again, leave a comment. I truly appreciate every single like, share, comment, and subscription, and I will respond to all of the comments. One last thing, if you could please share this with anyone you know who's a fan of Halloween, Zen, art, or comedy, and especially if you know anyone who's a fan of all four, please share this with them. Thank you for watching, happy Halloween, and now enjoy my bloopers. The boogeyman is a very unique and the boogeyman. Michael Myers is the shape of dismembering. Michael Myers is the shape of the whole hole. Because he teaches the trick and treat of being an enlightened adult is that you can still Michael Myers not only Michael Myers not only Romain Rolland is Romain Rolland in his letter to Romain Rolland in his letter So perhaps the reason the shape delivers his Alternatively in this way, stabbing and killing can be seen Nirvāṇa, which is a Sanskrit word that means to Alan Watts perfectly described this situation as Zen scholar I am simply theorizing why Michael Myers kills adults and babies have an egoless because he teaches liberation from you. What the Michael Myers is These are all some of the reasons why an important saying in Buddhism These are all some of the reasons why you are one with the endless, egoless ocean of reality. You are one with the endless You are one with the endless You are one with the endless, egoless ocean of reality. Upaya, which definitely wakes people up to the nature of self. Push the student to the next level of desire, and all of the pain that related to. And teaching the simple truth is that the boogeyman would see the shape shows you that the game ends no matter what you do. The boogeyman, perhaps the most for example, on lessons being taught by the boogeyman. You are enlightened. Most people are unenlightened and attached to their egos.